Here's some of the things I wish I knew earlier about building muscle as a teenager.
Pause. Now you're probably wondering, why should I listen to this guy? He's already big, got great genetics, and has probably had an easy road getting this physique. Wrong. You see, once upon a time, I was an average skinny teenager that had the hopes of building muscle and getting really strong. At 15 years old, I got fed up of being small, skinny, and self-conscious. I took action by joining my local gym to change the way I looked. Before you know it, I became obsessed with training. I developed a huge interest and passion for bodybuilding just a couple months into training. I read every book, watched every video, and tried every training program that I could get my hands on. Over the months and years, I grew bigger and stronger and developed quite an impressive physique very early on. I then decided to compete as a natural bodybuilder at just 19 years old with 3 years of total training. Fast forward to now, at just 24 years old, I'm still a natural bodybuilder, and in this video, I will tell you some of the mistakes I made and what I wish I knew about building muscle as a teenager. I will also hit an arm workout and discuss the various topics with a teenager who is currently in the very early stages of his muscle building journey.
I'm Kieran, I'm 17 years old and I've been training consistently for a year and a half.
So touching on training now, some of the things I wish I knew way sooner when I was in your age. The thing is with training is obviously such a broad topic that covers such a lot of things. So I'm pretty much only going to raise some of the few important parts that I really wish I knew and implemented way sooner at your age, knowing what I know now, if that makes sense. The first one's pretty obvious. I feel like a lot of teenagers neglect this, and that's so basic, but literally just training every single body part. Being that age, you want to come into the gym, you just want to train chest, shoulders and arms, but you know, if your aim is to really build your ideal physique, and I'm sure you'll know this now, you literally got to take every body part seriously from the day you decide, I'm really going to take seriously, basically, is what I'm saying. Which also brings me over to my next point, which is that once your newbie gains are out the way, that's pretty much where the real work begins. Like, where are you currently right now in your development of your newbie gains, would you say?
I would say there's definitely still newbie gains to be made, but I'd say I've made the majority of them. I think I missed out on a lot of newbie gains by training poorly and inconsistently for the first year of my training. That's why when you asked how long I've been training for, I'd say about a year and a half consistently, because I don't count that first year because it wasn't proper training.
With the newbie gains, as you'll know, like, the gains are ridiculous. Like, if you've never come to the gym before and you're a teenager and say you're like, you know, 14, 15 years old, as you know, if you literally go to the gym for like a year or 2 years and literally just messing about in the gym, you're gonna grow, get bigger and stronger anyway. But then once them newbie gains are done, there's gonna come a point where like the rate of progress you was originally making really fast starts to slow down. You basically need to develop a much smarter approach in the way how you're gonna operate in terms of your training and everything. What you was doing in your newbie years, you can't really get away with and expect to make crazy amount of progress as well. So that's one of the pointers I give out to some of the newbies and, you know, younger viewers watching this video right now.
Slide. 2. Good. Wow. Yeah. 1. Bang. Come on. Get it. Yeah, and again. One more.
Something I do wish I started implementing as early on as possible is tracking my lifts. Do you currently do that? And what's your current opinion on it? And do teenagers of today currently track their lifts?
I'm glad that's something you brought up, because that is where I started making the majority of my progress. So I've been tracking my lifts now for about a year, and since then everything's been going up, because then you know directly what needs work and then what doesn't. I don't think most teenagers are tracking their lifts, but it's definitely something I'd recommend to absolutely everyone.
As soon as I started tracking my lifts as well, the development of my physique specifically, of course strength goes up when you start tracking your lifts, but the way your physique changes, I believe, as a bodybuilder or someone that's trying to progress in the gym and build muscle, there's a drastic difference straight away, because literally every single exercise and every single rep now is valuable. Like, the stronger you can get a muscle, the more likely the bigger it is. You know, someone who can bench press 4 plates, I guarantee you they've probably got bigger chest than someone that can bench 2 plates, you know what I mean? Obviously, you got to factor things like form, time under tension and that, but if all those things are in check, you can't tell me the guy who benches more weight hasn't got a bigger chest, if that makes sense. So yeah, so another topic that is constantly raised with the teenagers, or something they're a little bit confused about, is just the consistency of their goals. Like 1 minute people are bulking, next week they're cutting, next minute they're bulking, the next minute they're cutting. And trust me, that is way more detrimental to your overall progress than you think it is.
When everyone's starting out, they're in a position where they need to bulk, they need to put on that size. I think for the first few years even, you should be bulking unless you're in a really unhealthy position where you need to cut. But I don't think most teenagers starting out are in that position, so I think definitely stick to the bulk and definitely put on as much size as possible in them early years.
Obviously, as a teenager, unless you're literally some kind of freak, you don't have that much muscle on your frame. It's really important that in them first few early years, remain consistent as much as possible, get as strong as possible in the gym, and just gain as much size as possible. Like, I didn't do my first cut until my first competition, which was when I was 3 years into my training. The whole time I was bulking. It might have not been, you know, the cleanest bulk. At least it's 3 years building that house, that foundation, before stripping everything off. Like, imagine if I was training for 6 months and then cutting, and then training for another 4 months and then cutting. Like, there's no way I would have made that transformation in 3 years. That now I look back now, it's actually very impressive for a teenager. That's what won me a British Teen Championship as well. Do you know what I mean? That didn't come easy. That came with 3 years of graft and working hard in the gym, constantly changing your goal, like bulking and cutting. Trust me, like, cut it out. As a teenager, just focus on getting as big and as strong as possible, even if it does take you 3 or 4 years. But trust me, once that foundation is set, you won't need to make as big adjustments as you think you need to. Let's go. Come on. Swap, one more. Everything. One more. Last one, last one. Last one. Come on. Easy. Let's go. Good. We'll get it. Again. Yes. Oh. I personally know, as a teenager myself, that I literally wanted to try all new programs, all new training splits, push-pull legs, single body part, chest and shoulders, you name it, like literally changing it every week. Because believe it or not, it actually isn't as beneficial as you think. The most important thing, I don't know if you've found it out yet, but just literally sticking to the same program and literally just trying to progress on it months on end, instead of just coming into the gym and being like, all right, this week I'm doing push-pull legs, next week I'm doing single body part. Like, you kind of have to give your body a rhythm and just progress in general all across the board, as opposed to just coming in and just changing your programs and just changing exercises every single time you see something new on social media or whatever.
That's definitely something a lot of teenagers struggle with. Like you said, when I first started, I was doing the bro split, and then I thought, oh, I'll do full body split, maybe Arnold split. But now I've sort of grown out of that and realised that's not the way to go. So I started doing the push-pull leg split, and I've stuck to that for about a year and a half. I think that's something people need to do. Stick to a certain program, not change it just because they don't enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, then maybe change your training. But I think picking the right split is something that's really important.
So because of my love for training as a teenager, and I don't mean to say it in a braggadocious or in a bragging way, but I just literally love training as a teenager. So consistency for me, it wasn't even a question. Some of my mates, when we was your age, we would finish school. Some of them were just passionate about going home and literally going on COD and just sweating it out. My passion was like, I can't wait to go home, get changed, and just go to the gym and just spend 2 hours in there. Consistency for me wasn't something that was an issue, and it was something that was very easy. And even till then, since I started training, I've been pretty consistent for almost 8 years straight now. Probably only taking like 4 months off in total of that whole 8 years, barring out, you know, rest days and rest weeks and whatever.
I was the same as you. From the get-go, once I started training, all I wanted to do was go in and train more. So consistency was never a problem for me. But I've had friends, I've seen people, you know, they're only in the gym once a week and they they're wondering why they're not making any gains, but then they don't realise the consistency is the thing they need. Like we said about earlier, training certain body parts. Everyone's skipping legs these days. That's something you've got to be consistent with. You can't look in the mirror and complain about the size of your legs if you aren't training them consistently. And I think something teenagers struggle with, because I think a lot of them, like you said, just want to go home, play Xbox and do all that. But consistency is where you're going to grow.
What the problem may be for some teenagers is that it might not necessarily be their love for training, which is okay, because not everybody has to love training. That's not what I'm saying. It might just be because they're training because, oh, I just want this physique. That's the reason why you're training. The reason is, oh, I'm just training just because of girls, or I'm just training because I want 20 each arm. That's a good enough reason, but when the going gets tough, your purpose to go in the gym and your motivation, as you say, to go to the gym will be really low, because the purpose you're going to the gym is not because you're loving it, it's because of something that you're chasing to try and get. To kind of make it a smoother process, I'd say for teenagers, is you kind of want to make it something that you enjoy doing on a daily basis, which also leads me on to my next point of consistency tying in with patience. As we mentioned, teenagers want to come in here, get big and just lift heavy out of muscle weight. That's all cool, but remember, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Like, it's gonna come eventually. Like, you can't expect to look like Chris Bumstead after a year or two of training. Do you know what I mean? You have to go through the levels and graduate at one level at a time. That also ties in with the point of doing the quality stuff in the gym. Yes, be consistent and yes, be patient, but at the same time, you also have to put in the quality work and have a good enough foundation at the same time.
I was the same. When I first started, after about 2 weeks, I look in the mirror and I'm saying, well, why am I not any bigger? And you've got to realise it takes time. You've got to enjoy that process. You know, there are going to be days where you don't feel like going, but you still got to go, because you've got to be patient with it. It takes years and years. Obviously, you know that yourself, because after 2-3 months, you're not getting any bigger, because you can't expect it to be like that. But then after those few years of training where you have put on that size, it motivates you more to keep going.
But you do have to remember, like, you are a teenager. Like, your body is supposed to look like a teenager. If you were just crazy like me and just sending it in the gym at like 14, 15 years old, then you could probably get them gradual changes very quickly. If you factor in, if you do have the genetics as well. But you need to remember that your body's still developing. It's not even in its peak state as a man yet. So don't get too caught up thinking, oh, I need to be this big now. Just focus on just making continuous, gradual progress every month. Even if it's just, you know, beating your own logbook numbers by 1 rep a month, that's still huge progress, because at the end of the year, it will all add up. Five, let's go, big arms now, let's go. 5 more, 5 more. 1, strong. 2, good ball. 3, 2 more. 1 more, everything's flat now. Sorry, I didn't see it.
Yeah, I think social media is good and bad. It's good for the advice you can receive and learn about training. Then it's bad because you compare yourself as well. That's the real issue, I think, with kids my age, is they're comparing themselves to, you know, these massive influencers who have got the best training, the best supplements, everything. And I think that's such an unhealthy thing to do, because you've always got to compare yourself to you. Compare yourself from a year ago rather than compare yourself to the guy on social media.
Back in 2015, social media was nowhere near as big as it is right now. Going into the gym, I was literally just focused on me. Like, I literally didn't care about social media at all. Like, my social media at the time, or inspirational influence you could say, was, you know, Arnold and Ronnie Coleman and the old school actual bodybuilding guys. But apart from that, I was just literally just concerned about myself. Like, I didn't care about anything but myself, you could say. But like, I've seen a trend of teenagers comparing themselves on Instagram, going into their gym with other people in their gym that they're training, and they're thinking, oh, I need to be bigger, I need to be better. Believe me, like, Run your own race if you're that age. The gains are gonna come regardless. Don't make the process any painful and any longer by just comparing yourself to other people. Like, you've got plenty of years to make progress. Look forward to that. It's not a sprint, and don't be looking left and right. Like, the job at the end of the day when you are training and your overall physique is literally you. Focus on that as much as you can. Don't get caught up on all the BS on social media and that, you know, majority of it is a facade anyways. And yeah, don't get caught up in all the white noise, as I like to call it. One thing I see a lot on social media, and I just hear a lot of young guys in the gym that are too caught up on as well, is just genetics. The truth of the matter is they are very important, and they make a large part of pretty much how you're going to look, body structure, the level of strength you'll probably get to. At the end of the day, genetics is just one of those things that the cards you're dealt with and you can't really change it. It's one of those things teenagers get way too caught up in, and they kind of shoot themselves in the foot, and it can negatively impact them in terms of they'll be like, oh, maybe I don't have the genetics for this, so their effort level and intensity in the gym isn't as high as it should be. Regardless of your genetics, you should be coming in the gym and just giving it 100%, whatever it is, to achieve your goals. If you look at my physique and my body type when I started training, when I was that 15-year-old skinny kid, how can anyone back then know that, oh, this kid had good genetics? Like, how could you tell? I was literally skin and bones. Like, how could you tell? Imagine if I put in my head, oh, I didn't have good genetics just because I was an absolute twig. It's just one of those things I'd say over time in your training years, you'll start to find out whether you do have the right genetics or not. But whether you do or not, the main thing is the work that you have to put in to get to your desired goal anyway.
Let's go. 3, 5. There we go. 7. Yeah, now let's go. 2 more. 2 more. Come on. Everything counts. 1 more. Go. Get it. Squeeze.
So I think mentality is definitely the biggest barrier for teenagers who are just starting to train. When you first come down to the gym and you're with your friends and stuff, you're just there messing about, making a few newbie gains, but when it's time to work, you got to dial in, you're there to train. So I think that mentality needs to be adopted by people who really want to take it seriously and really grow. Because for the first year of my training, I never went to failure, never trained hard. I always sort of just went through the motions. But when you want to put on as much size as possible, you got to dial in, you got to want it so badly. And I think that's what a lot of teenagers are missing.
So also top up on the mental aspect, like some of the messages I was getting last week from teenagers was like they need to build their confidence, they're a little bit shy in the gym, like they can't really go all out just because they feel like everyone's watching them or something. This is what I talk about, developing your mindset in the gym. Once you're in the gym, you basically have to become selfish to your goals. You have to be loyal to your goals. That's the number one thing, otherwise you're not going to progress. Build that mental fortitude to the point where it's getting bigger and stronger as if it was a muscle as well. So every time you're coming into the gym, you're like, I've improved in my confidence, I've improved in my ability to take a set to failure, I've improved in my ability to psych myself up for a lift. Like, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about the mental aspects in the gym. Alright guys, so that's the end of the arm workout, and that's also wraps up the end of this video with Kieran. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and take away some key points that you can implement into your journey wherever you're at. Be sure to follow Kieran on Instagram. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe on this video. Check out my socials as well, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Peace.